Shalom, everyone, and we're studying today Parashat Bo, the book of Exodus, Shemot, chapter 10, verse 1. ויאמר אדוני אל משה, בוא אל פרעה, כי אני הכבדתי את ליבו. And we are reading this week Parashat Bo, which is the description of the three last plagues of the 10 and the Exodus. The Exodus, the departure of the Israelite from Egypt after centuries of slavery. So now the question is very clear. What's in it for me? We're talking about an event that happened some 33 centuries ago. Yes, it's a miraculous event. You know what? The last time I searched in the academia, they totally deny the existence of an event like this. So we have a known event that didn't exist, that changed the course of history forever. Okay, so what's in it for us? This is the question. What do we learn from that story? So here we can read the meaning of, and again, the advice, because over here, just in the beginning of the Zohar of this parasha, just remember one thing. If an event in history had such a strong influence, impact on the way all of us think, just think about it. When we are talking about the world before the Exodus, it's a world of slavery, no human rights, the whole idea about the right of a human being for his own happiness, that no one has the right to take it away. This idea is born in this parasha. We have a story of a nation of slaves. Slaves were property. In the ancient time, till not long ago, and I think in some places, even today, there are certain people, like wives, for instance, uh, or certain minorities in certain countries, that they don't have the right for their happiness or the right for property or the right for expressing their own opinion and ideas. However, we know today that this is a felony. We know that to block people's rights for happiness is a felony, that the greatest transgressors, they're trying to hide it. They're trying to hide it in this way or another of PR, buying media and stuff like this. In the ancient times, it was okay. It was the law. And the big majority of human beings had no right for their own happiness, for their own property, for anything that, for their bodies. The whole idea that we cherish today so much, that human beings, more and more of them have more and more rights. This is coming from this story. So the story of an event that, according to the academia and science, never happened, is so major in the definition of who we are today and what do we believe in as a civilization. So the problem is that when you try to make people forget or deny an event in such a scale, there is a price, and the price is heavy. So let us try to understand what are we talking about and how can we basically enhance our own free will, our own freedom, any kind of freedoms, just from using this very important story. So the story starts, Vayomer Adonai Moshe bo el Paro, and God says to Moses, come to Pharaoh. Okay, what does that mean? And the question is, we can ask a lot of questions about it, but especially the simplest question is that many commentators are asking is, why does it say come to Pharaoh and it doesn't say go to Pharaoh? This is being asked by many commentators, but the first time this is written down, you can find it in the Zohar of Parashat Bo. Verse 36 in the Sulam commentary. אמר רבי שמעון, עתה יש לגלות סודות שמתדבקים למעלה ולמטה. Listen carefully. Rabbi Shimon says, this is a time to reveal secrets of above and below. And here lies the story. There's above and there's a below. The same school of thought, calling themselves modern science or academia, they deny the story of the Exodus, that it even existed, although for thousands of years, millions and now billions of people repeat the story of something that never happened. Okay? This is very weird. Either this is the biggest lie in history or somebody's trying to cover up. And I'll explain why they're trying to cover up. It says over here something very important. There is above and there is a below. And that's the most important thing, because the same school who denies the Exodus denies the above and below idea. This above and below idea is the main idea of the story of what we call Mount Sinai Revelation, the 5 books of Moses, and all what's in it. And the whole what we call Bible, the Tanakh, that is expansion and all the traditions and the laws that came out of it. Why is that so important? מה כתוב? As it says, בוא אל פרעה, על הולך אל פרעה היה צריך לומר. Why does it say come to Pharaoh? It should have been said go to Pharaoh. And he answers, אלא שהכניס אותו את משה חדרים לפנים מחדרים אל תנין חזק אחד עליון, שכמה מדרגות משתלשלות ויורדות ממנו. ומי הוא סוד התנים הגדול. He brought Moses, God brought Moses, a room within a room within a room in a deep place to a great supreme crocodile that many, many, many levels are evolving from this crocodile. And who is that? It is the great crocodile or reptile that is mentioned in Genesis chapter 1 on the 5th day. Moshe ירא מפניו. Moses was afraid of him. ולא קרב אלו לאלו היורים. He could come close only to the rivers that are spreading or flowing from there, that are his levels or evolving levels. But to the crocodile himself, he was in awe, and he was not ready to get close, because he saw that crocodile, Tanim Agadol, is connected to very high roots. I'll explain all of that. Verse 38, כיוון שראה הקדוש ברוך הוא שמשה ירא, since God saw that Moses was afraid, ושליחים אמונים אחרים למעלה לא יכלו לקרב אליו, and also because other angels could not approach that crocodile, אמר הקדוש ברוך הוא, so God said, הנני עליך פרעה מלך מצרים, התנים הגדול הרובץ בתוך יאוריו. And he said that you can read it in the book of Ezekiel 29, I'm here upon you, the Pharaoh, the king of Egypt, the great crocodile lying in his Nile. So who is the great crocodile? Pharaoh. So when God says, come to Pharaoh, שהקדוש ברוך הוא היה צריך לערוך עמו מלחמה ולא אחר. God had to make war against him, and without any messenger, as it is said in this parasha. It says, Ani Hashem, I am God, and not a messenger. Okay, so what are we talking about? In order to understand that, we have to understand the concept of free will. And let's go back to the beginning of the Zohar of this parasha. Verse 1 of Parashat Bo, in Perush HaSulam, and it starts with Psalms 89, Ashrei ha'am yodei tru'ah, praiseworthy is the nation that knows the blowing of the shofar. Adonai be'orpanecha yalechun, God, in the light of your face they will be walking. כמה הצטריכו בני נשה למח באורחי דקודשה בריחו. People need humans to walk in the path of God. ולמיתר פיקודי אורייתא, and to observe, it's not observe the mitzvot of the Torah. בגיד דזקון בה לעלמא דעתי, because by using the mitzvot of the Torah, people can merit the world to come. ולשבה אלון מכל קטרוגין דאלה ותתה, and also to be saved from all kinds of troubles from above and below. דהקמא דשתכחו מקטרגין בעלמא לטאטא, הכי נמי השתכחו מקטרגין לאלה, דקיימי עליו דבני נשה. The same way, there's so many things that block people's growth. So many enemies to humans' life. You know, you have viruses, you have bacteria, you have insects, you have bigger animals that could be a threat to people's lives. You can have human beings and natural disasters. There's so many things in the physical plane that could be a danger to humans' life. But the same way there are dangers to human life in the physical plane, there is the metaphysical plane, the unseen plane, the spiritual dimension. The same way there are enemies of humanity in the physical world, there are enemies in the metaphysical world. So if you think you're really safe in the physical world, for instance, okay, so you have a lot of protection today that we have from viruses and germs and so on and so forth, and even human beings by security measurement. And let's say you live in a gated community with a very highly paid salary guarding system. Does that mean that you are immune of any kind of troubles? Of course not. Troubles are very, very creative in our lives. Because even if you block all enemies, any kinds of enemies, in any kinds of sizes, on the physical domain, we have enemies on the metaphysical domain too. And people need protection from these enemies. So the question is, why do we need those enemies? Where are they coming from? What's their source? So we just skip to verse 5 in the Zohar. Verse 5 says, Rabbi Elazar patach, ויהי היום ויבואו בני האלוהים להתייצב על השם. This is just the beginning of the book of Job. Chapter 2. And the day came, and the sons of God came to present themselves in front of him. And Satan was amongst them. That's how it says. ויהי היום, what was that special day? Da Rosh Hashanah, this is Rosh Hashanah. The Kudsha Brichu Kayem LeMeidan Alma, that God is sitting there to judge this world. Why do you need to judge the world? Kegav Nadav vayayom vayavo shama. So, what does it mean? That we're talking about the Rosh Hashanah. ההוא יומא יום טוב וראש השנה הבא. ויבוא בני אלוהים, Elan, and who are the sons of God who came? Eli, Elan, Ravrevim, Emonat, Shlichit, Ba'alma. They are angels, messengers in this world. להשגחה בעבודים דבני נשה. What are these messengers about? They are to monitor the actions of human beings. As it says, and this is from Kings 1, chapter 22, וכל צבא השמיים עומדים עליו מימינו ומשמאלו. And the whole host of the heavens is standing upon him on his right and on his left. Okay, to make, I think people are losing patience. So what are we talking about? First of all, why we name Satan or Satan as one of the sons of God? What are we talking about? And that's exactly what the Zohar is talking about in the next few chapters. We have a system of the world that we live in. And in this system, there are two main forces that are basically running our lives. We have what is called the good inclination, which is coming from the soul that is in a human body. And what is the soul made of? The soul is made of as Rabbi Eshlag explains, the word soul in Hebrew is neshama. Neshama is coming from the word shuma, estimate, or when you want to evaluate the worth of somebody, the worth of a property, or that's what shuma is about. And what is about? It's about a value, about the potential, about the power, about the again, value from the ability. How much money can that person make? Let's say, okay, that's when we're talking about tax authorities. Okay, how do you call in Hebrew the person that the tax authorities are dealing with? Nishom, which means the person that is being evaluated. Or in Hebrew, and the word for soul, a soul is neshama, nishom, neshama. So what are we talking about? What is the value of the human being? The value of a human being is a direct result of his desires and wills. People with huge desires, they can do huge things, good or evil. People with small, tiny desires, they're capable of doing small little things, good or evil. So the source of what's pushing us, driving us, motivating us, this is the soul. So this is what the soul is about. However, what we call our consciousness is made of two different layers. One is the original soul that we have, and the soul which is coming from heavenly source is a very unique creation. When the universe was created, there were souls and there was the light of God. The light expanded, and as it was expanding, it created the souls. What created the souls? We said souls are desire, value, which means people with big souls, they have bigger value because they are more capable of creating stuff. Okay, so the problem was that there is a very important law that we have to understand. It's the law of attraction or affinity, which means similarity attract. Then in the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. And then it was said, and God said, let there be light. And we know it's not a physical light because the physical light starts only on the fourth day when the sun, the moon, and the stars are being created. So what kind of light was there before? We're talking about the spiritual, hidden, treasured light. It's a light that is very, very dominant in our lives. When we are full of it, we're high, we're happy, we're enlightened, we are full of very precious emotions of love, grace, kindness, care, and so on. However, when we're not full with that light, the emptiness is painful. And that's where depression is coming from. What's depression? Deep pressure. The light is gone and there's a vacuum inside. And that vacuum is painful. Now, if we can distract it with a lot of other stuff we do, yeah, but once in a while we realize that we are in pain. And therefore we see that the biggest plague in our generation is basically depression. Depression, which means a lack of the godly spiritual light. Okay? Now, we were all created by that light as the impression of the light. Because if you ask this amazing question, it sounds like what comes first, the chicken or the egg? And the question says, what comes first, the fulfillment or the desire? And that could be misleading. However, we learn from the Kabbalistic teachings that fulfillment comes before the lack. Why? When you have a lack, how do you know what you're missing? How do you know what you need unless you have a memory of the fulfillment of that lack? Which means our souls were created as vessels, as the light of the Creator expanded into our souls, becoming the vessels, the desires for that light. However, there's a secret over here. Since we received the light of the Creator, and since His big H, giving, is infinite, He gave us everything. He gave us especially Himself. And therefore, it says in Genesis 1, and God created God created Adam in the image of God, which means we know God does not have an image. God is infinite. Infinite. There's only one way to understand, to try to fathom what does it mean, the God of Abraham and Jacob? What does it mean to be monotheistic? Having a God that is the creator, he's above the creation, within the creation, all around the creation, infiltrating everything because his presence is infinite everywhere. Melo kol haaretz kvodo. His glory fills up the earth. Okay, so why can't I feel that glory? Why sometimes it looks so lonely, depressing, and empty? And the answer is like this. When the Creator imprinted himself in each one of us, he could not imprint himself to the fullest. And that means that we are all created in his image. We all have, if we want to bring it down to something simple, we all have the urge to be independent because the Creator is independent. Nobody can affect the Creator. He is great. When we say God is angry, God has changed his mind, whatever, this is not God. This is only something that we perceive. Sometimes we feel that God is angry about us. Sometimes we think God is loving us. And most of the time we think he ignores us. He's too busy to be busy with us. And he's not even listening. Okay? Why is it? It's because that in the beginning we were all full with the light of God. However, because he imprinted in us, as we said, independence, people need independence. We cannot stand being somebody as a slave. We cannot stand being addicted to something. Sooner or later, it will kill us, or we will rebel against it. God is the creator, and we need to be creative. It's almost impossible to find happy, lazy people. And the third aspect is God is a great giver, and we need to give. However, when the creator created the universe as an infinite reality where there are infinite amounts of souls and all of them are fulfilled infinitely, that was a perfect state. However, when you are imprinted by the image of God, there is a kind of a problem. You want to create all of that by yourself. You want to create your happiness by yourself. You don't want to receive free gifts. You don't want to receive free enlightenment. And therefore, we shut down the light. And what came out is called the tzimtzum, the contraction. Who shut down himself? The souls. We did not allow the light of God to come in anymore, so we can create the fulfillment by ourselves. Immediately after that, after the tzimtzum, a great space had been created by our action. Because we pushed the light away, it went away. Remember, there's a saying that says, there's no coercion in spirituality. Can you force somebody to be happy? Can you cause somebody to be successful? No, you can't. And if you force it upon them, they will rebel or be miserable, which is the same. So an empty space was created. That's the space we live in. In that space, we cannot see the light of God closely. And that created two kinds of forces. One kind of force is the kind of the original vessel, the original desire. Okay, the original desire says, I want the light. I want fulfillment. I want to feel good. I want to feel great. Okay? What's the problem with that? By the law of affinity, similarities attract. Now, if the light of God is infinite giving of everything possible, our desire is exactly the opposite. It's infinite receiving of everything possible. So can two forces like this coexist? And the answer is, of course not. Of course not. So the first stage of that is a lot of darkness. Why? Because the light of the Creator cannot fulfill the vessel because they're so far from each other. He can't be farther from the light of God. How can you receive the light of God if you're so far away from Him? And a second tzimtzum, a second contraction happened for that purpose. And in that contraction, the soul had again contracted its ultimate desire to receive and went up to another level, which is called Binah. And then a new kind of a vessel was created. It's a vessel that is a composition, a synthesis between the desire to receive and the desire to share. Because when you connect to that level and you understand that when you receive, you give, and when you give, you receive, and you don't feel like a victim when you give, when you care, when you're being there for someone, and when you receive happiness, you're still not feeling guilty because you receive happiness because that's the way to serve the Creator. He created us to be fulfilled with His light. Very simple. So when we activate that desire, which is the true soul, the true origin of the souls, the soul will be enlightened. Okay? But the soul, the new kind of a soul, had to come to this world inside what we call the body. And the body is going after the first kind of tzimtzum, which is I want, I desire, I need, and I care about no one. That's our bodily desires. When we are hungry, are we obsessed with the idea that we have to feed others? Mm, not normally. When we trying to achieve happiness, are we obsessed with the idea that we have to make other people happy? Most of us, no. So what's the result? The result is that who is in control? That part of our identity that is the first vessel, which is the root of what we call the body consciousness, and it's represented in the story as Pharaoh and Egypt. What is the only way to fight the bad inclination, the evil inclination? How do we remove that evil inclination? We all have to see ourselves coming out of Egypt. We are all slaves in Egypt. So we said last week, some of us are enslaved to addiction to physical stuff like alcohol and drugs and smoking. Okay, some people are addicted to something more subtle, like being right, being okay, being appreciated. Uh, a lot of people are addicted to what people think about us. What's my status in society? Which is also very animalistic, by the way, because many animals have the same kind of conflicts. Uh, but this is the evil inclination. It basically subjugates us. And we, like the Israelites, we are in our own private, lonely Egypt. The more materialism that we bring in to satisfy our soul, the more hungry our soul will become. The most materialistic countries have the highest rates of depression. So, where is depression coming from? Lack of light. Who takes over? Darkness. Whose darkness? This is what evolves from the original vessel, which is me and only me and nothing but me. And it's all about me. Okay? What's the problem with being selfish? It doesn't pay. It doesn't pay. Why it doesn't pay? Because the more selfish you become, and the less you serve others and God, and the highest level to serve God is to serve others. Uh, if you don't do that, you are selfish, and being selfish, the Mishnah says, Resha'im b'chayehem nikraim metim. Evil people, they are dead while they're still alive. How come they're dead? They're still screaming, yelling, buying, selling. They are considered dead. They will die shortly after. And, research is showing that. And the answer is that why is it that they are dead? Because the light of the Creator is the only light that sustains real, true life. The more you suffocate your soul by materialism and selfish behavior and egotism, the faster is the pace to the grave. And there's so much research about it in the last few decades. So when we are coming to redeem ourselves, God says to Moses, come to Pharaoh, which means let's go together. Come with me. Come with me. I think the most successful system around the world to fight against addictions is the 12-step program. And one of the main rules of the 12 steps programs is to realize that there is a higher power, that without that higher power, you can never be redeemed. And that's exactly what it says over here. When you want to fight, not just the delta of the Nile, which means only the manifestations of the evil inclination, of the great crocodile in the Nile. If you want to destroy all your enemies on the physical plane, which could be people, uh, nature, the economy, uh, bad luck, bad faith, animals, big ones, small ones, bacteria and viruses, all of them, when they come to plague us, they plague us only because we got off chart, we got off track, as the Zohar explains a lot. So what we need to do, we need to connect to a higher power so light can remove the darkness. And that higher power, first of all, can be attracted by the soul consciousness. The soul consciousness is created, as we said before, from two forces: the desire to receive, which is the original soul, and the divine upper world desire to give, share, and illuminate. That's the synthesis, or more like the wedding of these forces, is created the second Tzimtzum. There are many legends about it, but in the Talmud, the legend says God created the world so many times it didn't exist. So finally, God had to make a kind of a little trick to change it, in which a soul was created, the soul of all of us, that has within it automatically both forces as a synthesis, the desire to receive and the desire to share and give. This is the frequency of the soul. However, who is controlling us? The system of the body. And the body is selfish since birth. As it says, Yetzer lev ha'adam ra mineuраv. The inclination of the human heart is evil from birth. How do we overcome it? So the Zohar is saying, the whole story of the Exodus is about that. Here we have a whole nation of slaves. Here we have a fixated state in which there are slaves, there is the empire, Egypt, and the slaves' destiny is to stay slaves. You use slaves as property. You inherit them to your children, and they to their children, and children, and the children of the slaves, they are born into slavery, and they will be slaves forever. We're talking about on the spiritual plane. It used to be in the physical plane. And you know what? In many places, it still is. There are many people that treat their spouse as a slave, treat their kids as slaves. Sometimes the kids treat their parents as slaves. And without any mercy, okay? Without any way out. Slavery is something that comes with the enslavement of the human desire into its own passions. Passion for power, passion for enjoyment, and so on. When it is selfish, this is a slavery. Why is it a slavery? Because it becomes obsessive. The more you feed it, the more obsessive it becomes, till you finally collapse and you become a mentally disabled person. Why did you go through all of these stages? Because you are not aware the name of the game. The game is that we humans, we have to fight our dark side. We have to fight that reptilic side that reptilic brain, which is represented over here by the crocodile, Egypt, Pharaoh, that part that has fight and flight and freeze mechanism. You react all the time because you're insecure all the time. And therefore, you just either in passion to achieve more pleasure on the physical plane or protection on the physical plane, whatever obsession you are at the moment. But you don't have to be a slave. And the way to change that position, the way to disengage or unsubscribe that state of mind of being subjugated to fears and phobias and passion and stuff like this. And all of them are short and all of them are short-lived. So let's say you did smoke a cigarette. How long did that make you happy? Let's say you did take some drugs or whatever. How long does that last? Maybe minutes, half an hour, maybe a little bit later, but there's always the terrible pain of waking up in the morning after. Why is it like this? By the law of affinity. Selfishness cannot really attract the infinite light of the Creator, the force of life, the energy of life. And you start to wilt and die slowly, painful death. You have spurts of power that you think you take over, that you fight for your interests. But then you stay with yourself looking at the mirror and you realize that, yes, I got so much. Why am I happy? The story of the duel between the Israelite nation being born as a nation and the Egyptian empire, that's a story. How do I redeem myself? And that's the answer. Come to Pharaoh. God says, you want to fight your own Pharaoh, your own Egypt, your own dungeon, mental, emotional dungeon. Come with me. Come with the light of God. And here we have those expressions that says that why do we need the Torah? Why do we need the study of the Torah? Why do we need the mitzvot, the precepts? And the answer is because the light being drawn in by studying, by praying, by doing all of these mitzvot, we have to meditate, contemplate, and desire that light. And the moment we do desire that light, we draw it in, and then what it says, and God said to Moses, come to Pharaoh, let's go together. When I am associating myself with the light force of the Creator, which is the most dominant force in the universe, the most powerful, when we associate with that, ourselves with that, when we mentally, spiritually, consciously meditate, and as more than that, drawing it in, the light in it will purify us. That's also in the Mishnah. The light within the Torah will purify us. So, but only when we are basically, when we perform any kind of mitzvah, either lighting Shabbat candles, laying tefillin, giving charity, helping somebody in need, being there, extending a helping hand. When you do it because it is a nice thing, a tradition, it makes you feel like you are a great person, but it does not have any good effect over your ego. It makes it even worse because you're more proud because look about the outcome. I'm such a great person. I gave and I shared. How do I know it's fake? When another person asks me for a favor, and maybe this time I won't be so graceful and so giving, maybe because I don't have the time, but still, it won't be grace anymore. And that means I'm not within the light. come to Pharaoh means that we have to train our mind, train our brain to bring in the light of the Creator into every mitzvah, either between a human being and his associates, like giving charity, as we said, helping the poor, helping somebody to carry a very heavy bags he cannot carry. You can help, and you are there. You're doing it for one purpose, which is that when you share with others, you allow the Creator to share with you. So you share with others, at the same time, you request the from the Creator will give you the power, the energy, and the opportunity to be of help to others. When you do that, you draw in the metaphysical light of the creation. That light has the power to purify your own self and to purify your community, and even much broader scale than that. But this is the story that we're talking about. And that's why we can understand the idea of all of those messengers. The messengers are the angels created by our actions. So let's say I feel pity for somebody and I give him some charity. So the Arizal, Rabbi Zaklura, is saying, if you did it just because you had some mercy for him, it's a good deed. It can heal you in the longer run, but not immediately. And the impact will be very, very shallow. However, if you're doing that with a higher consciousness of bringing in more justice, love, kindness, grace, so the other person will feel great, and you are doing that in order to be able to help the light of the Creator to be dominant in this world. That's exactly what the book of Job is saying. That's why exactly it's talking about the blowing of the shofar of Rosh Hashanah. It's all about when we extend our enlightenment by the study, the meditation of the Torah and the names of God. When we are focused on that, we can draw in, as again, what Rabbi Isaac Luria is saying, if you're not focused on that, it won't come in. It won't purify your soul. And that will make you, when your soul is purified, then it will be more genuine, more authentic. The plea from God to send light that will remove my negativity so I can be redeemed. How did the redemption happen? So he said, the whole story where it says when God says it's going to be me and not a messenger, not an angel, which means we are talking about a revelation of the infinite light of God entering Egypt and breaking the dark side. Otherwise, how can you explain that all the Israelites got up and left after Moses? The ones who were not enlightened did not leave Egypt. Why should I leave a land of milk and honey? A land is first world country. Let's take over. And why do I have to go to a third world country, Canaan, or to the desert? So where it says, שישראל, verse 7, כאשר לא נמצאו מעשיהם של ישראל כראוי, when the actions of the nation of Israel are not properly done, which means with the right intention and wisdom, כביכול אלו ממונים השליחים כשרוצים לעמוד על האלו המעשים של ישראל, הם עומדים על השם. So the angels are not powerful enough to deliver any positive light of protection. וכשישראל עושים מעשים שאינם טובים, when people do actions that are not good, כביכול מחלישים כוח הקדוש ברוך הוא. It looks like they make God more weak. How could be God weak? וכשעושים מעשים טובים, נותנים גבורה וכוח לקדוש ברוך הוא. When they do good deeds and mitzvot, they give vigor and power to God. ועל זה כתוב, תנו עוז לאלוקים. And for that it says, this is Psalm 68, give power to God. I can give power to God. No, what the Zohar is saying, when we join by willing it, by wishing it, by demanding it, by believing in it, when we do actions and we say we consciously aware that every action can bring in God's light into the physical plane. By that, I strengthen God's light in this world. I do that with my small soul, with my small desires. And when we are not, when we are materialistic, we don't believe that there's anything of high, we don't believe in a metaphysical dimension, and we believe, like, the academia, human beings are basically machines, sophisticated machines, developed by random in the evolution, and therefore, what can you expect? We have faults, and that's what's going to plague us forever. And if you think like this, if you focus on that, and you deny the existence of a soul, of God, of another higher dimension that all of us started from and we're going to finish over there, totally free. Not subjugated to the body, its senses, its logic, and emotions that are very primitively adjacent to the reptile brain, which means what really drives us is the primitive desires of fear, lust, fight, flight, and so on and so forth. This is the evil inclination. It is about selfishness. It is about, I was created to receive and I'm here to take everything. What's the problem? By the law of affinity, you are not connected to infinite. And how do I connect to infinite? When whatever I enjoy, I know myself, I condition myself to use it for others. I'm not a limited soul anymore. I'm a pipe. I'm a channel. You have to contemplate on that. But that means that we have two, let's say, we are bipolars, all of us. We have two main entities inside us. One is the soul that wants only to be a vessel for God because that's what the soul was created for. One is the brain that is not ruled by the soul unless we really work hard for that. But in order to be redeemed from the body's pharaonic control, is we have to pray for it. We have to apply it. We have to imagine it in everything we do. That whatever we do it in order to bring in God's infinite light. How can I do it? Only when I'm willing, wishing for it in order to share with others. So when it says, so how do we connect to it on Passover? We eat 4 pieces of matzah. We drink 4 cups of wine. That's mainly. We have to eat maror, bitter herbs. These are the utensils we use in order to draw the presence of the unseen world to come and imprint it, fill it up into those souls, into our bodies, into our reality. Only then the light that we draw in will purify our stupidity, our addictions, our negativity. And this is the secret of what life is about. So from now on, when you light candles of Shabbat, when you light holiday candles, when you make a blessing over the bread or any kind of other drinks or food, when you say blessing, and all of what is called mitzvot, it's all about strengthening God. How do I strengthen God? In this plane, he is not strong. What you see miracles all over the time. Most people are so bothered, the miracle will happen in front of them. The writing will be on the wall. They will never be able to see it because they're so dizzy from what's going on, and that because they're so selfish. When we persistently come to Pharaoh, come with the light of God, and we visualize, we imagine the light of God in every mitzvah that we do. And again, not just the religious mitzvot, when we do something good for somebody else, when we imagination that by doing that, Nu Oz Elohim, we give power to God because we bring in the spiritual force of the Creator and we instill it into small three-dimensional realities. Could be something of commercial value, whatever kind of interaction we have. When we always listen to the messages of the Torah, we always understand that the action has the power to draw. How do we start over here? When we are talking about the plague of the firstborn, when the Israelites are being ordered, this is a Parashat Bo, chapter 12. And what does it say over there? Verse 1. Okay. ויאמר אדוני אל משה ולאהרון בארץ מצרים לאמור. And God said to Moses and Aaron in the land of Egypt, saying, החודש הזה לכם ראש חודשים ראשון הוא לכם לחודשי השנה. This month is the head of the months, the first one of the months of the year. What happened over here? And the sages are teaching us that this is when Moses received all the instructions for the Exodus, but the first one was how to bless the new moon, which means how to control the 12 signs of the zodiac, how to control the astrological system, which is also unseen to the physical senses and the physical mind. That's how it started, but it doesn't stop over there. It continues immediately after. דברו אל כל הדת בני ישראל לאמור, and talk to the whole congregation of Israel, saying, on the 10th day after the new moon, they should take each one of them, each household should take a lamb, one for every household, slaughter the lamb, eat the lamb, although the lamb was the idol of Egypt. And what happened? We're still doing that. We're still doing a lot of stuff that was done on that night. Why do we still eat kosher matzah? Why do we still drink wine? And the answer is that the Torah relates to these as vehicles to create magic. What's the magic? When we think about drawing in, when we visualize, about bringing in the light of the Creator into our own, that's come to Pharaoh. When we bring that light of the Creator into everything we do, that light removes the darkness. It's not our talent that will do that. That light will remove the negativity, the Pharaoh and the Egypt by blowing into them like it happened in Egypt. The light that was revealed on that night was so strong, it burned all the firstborns of Egypt. They all died that night. And it saved the Israelites. Why? Oh, remember, they put on the door, they took the blood of the lamb, and some say the blood of the circumcision they did to themselves, mix it. And they put it on the doorpost and the lintel and the two posts. And the Zohar says they drew the Hebrew letter Hey, which is a symbol of the Shekhinah, the divine presence, the protection. The idea that we are having a war that is happening in two universes, the physical and universal, without the metaphysical light, without the awareness to the spiritual dimension, we have no chance to win that war. And as I said many times lately, we are now within World War II. The war is not between or among different kind of weapons. Some are less advanced, some are more advanced. The war is between two schools in society. One school says there is no soul, the Exodus never happened, and the whole Torah is just a lie. Another one says Mount Sinai, the Exodus and Mount Sinai revelation and the whole Torah is a magical being that came from a magical source. That every time that we read that text, we draw in from the upper worlds feelings, healings from whatever it plagues us. Which means, how would somebody become more pure? How would somebody become more benevolent, more graceful, more soft, more positive, more wise? You need to draw in, bring in. Imagine, says Rabbi Zakroa, you have to imagine that while you're doing whatever mitzvah is about, you are bringing down the light of the Creator. You have to imagine it with your eyes, with your brain, to imagine it and make it as vivid as possible, and then inject it into your body. When you do it, you give power to God, because now God can work through you. And when He can work through you, you get something on the way, right? More benevolence, more sharing, and more divinity. And that is when you start to realize that humans were not born to be slaves. Humans are supposed to be born as free human beings. We all born as slaves. Till bar mitzvah or bat mitzvah, we are completely in slavery. After that, we start to realize we can fight that. We have to fight it. We have no other chance. This is the practicality of this parasha. You have to come with God into your own Pharaoh. You have to imagine God's light coming in, and you have to imagine it's coming into the problem and blowing it up and coming with a solution. If you didn't make it the first time, you do it the second time, the third time, till you become a pro. And that's called the faith in God. It's not that, oh, God is good, He's going to save me, I just have to sit down over here and I'm going to be saved. No, it doesn't work like this for most people. You have actively to bring the light of the Creator into whatever you do. When you train yourself to do it, you finally, it becomes a second nature. And then you start to realize that your life is much more enhanced, that you are starting to call yourself redeemed. Slowly, slowly, you will be able to be redeemed through the healing that we get through this parasha. Thank you so much, and good luck in the journey.